but answers that you can use, like an answer to the question, Chris, why are all the TLDRs going into this YouTube channel this week? Because normally you just make 2 of them public. Even though all of them are recorded every day here for the patrons, aka the Supernomies, you can become one of them and get all the bonuses at chrispirillo.com. That's got more information. The reason why all the TLDRs are going to be public this week is because of a sponsor! Yay, sponsors! For giving us things that otherwise we wouldn't have. Like LittleBits. LittleBits happens to be the sponsor. If you head over to LockerGnome.com/LittleBits, you can get more information, but let me go ahead and step you through a demonstration. Effectively, in this particular kit, I've got various components that do various things, and I'm going to build something right here. Okay, I built it through the magic of the internet. I put together 3 components. I've got a power component, I've got a speed component, and a buzzer component. So what I might want to do with this is make the buzzer pulse, but not as a buzzer would normally pulse if it did not have a limiter. So let me go ahead and turn on the power module. I've got power. Ooh, that's loud. And it's also kind of slow. Let's go ahead and speed that up. I simply turn the screw, and now the buzzer is going at a rapid pace. Why? Well, that's for you to figure out, because you have a lot of components to play with. That's just one example. Powered by a simple 9-volt battery. It comes with a recipe booklet of sorts, so you can start there, or you can invent your own ideas, and then take those ideas and actually build them into things to make them do things that otherwise they wouldn't do. So it's kind of like a DIY, more for noobs like myself, or maybe kids, anybody who's starting to get into electronics, wanting to understand circuitry and how you put one thing with another to make something completely different. Again, littlebits.com/LockerGnome is where you can go for more information and a discount. That's right, that's what it says. You get a bonus by going through my link. You can even share my link with other people. I'm sure they'd appreciate that as well. It's a lot of fun. It's something that you can do and potentially involve your kids if you have kids. And even if you didn't have kids, I'd say it's still a lot of fun to play with. I'm making things that, I would never be able to make on my own because I'm not really handy when it comes to electronics and soldering irons. No soldering irons are involved with the little bits. On LockerGnome.com, we've posted the 7 classic video game consoles to Crave, including flashbacks, and I'm thinking about getting a couple of them because I didn't have them. The Intellivision's got a flashback. Of course, Atari's had a flashback, and these are little systems. You plug into your TV, or I guess a monitor, and you can start playing games. It's like all the cartridges are built into this console. So, not the original cartridges, naturally, just the ROMs. So if you want to play classic Intellivision games, you can with the Intellivision flashback. Or not all, most of the classic Atari games you can play on the flashback. Over the past week or so, I've been experimenting with streaming games into this channel, just ever so briefly, and doing it live. If you happen to catch me while I'm doing it live, we'll do it live. One of them was Geometry Wars. Today I did Crossy Road, just kind of playing around. I'm experimenting with the desktop streaming software, which sometimes throws me off. It's relatively brand new for me, and I'm working through a few issues, actually running a beta program, because I've been troubleshooting an issue with this camera. I've been in contact with Elgato, and their support has been phenomenal. They sent me the device to try, and it's been great. The next game I think I want to stream into the channel is playing Mega Mania, or one of the classic Activision games in the, it's not an emulator, really. The ROMs are baked into the app on iOS, at least. In my classic channel today, I posted 7 things I like about the Apple Watch. Well, no surprise, Chris. Of course you like the Apple Watch. It says Apple on it. Of course you like it. I'm just pretending to be people. But let me go ahead and just backslap those people. Can I say that? Backslap? Backhand. I'm going to backhand those people. Psh! And tell them that next week I'm going to have the 7 things I don't like about my Apple Watch, which patrons can already watch. And then, that's funny, watch stuff about the watch. So I'm going to approach reviews like that, I think. 7 things I like in one video, 7 things I don't like in another video. And I'm doing that with the LG G4 as well. And then after that, it'll be another product that I like and dislike. Just so I can see if the internet's mind explodes. Will it explode? We don't know. But you can't like and not like something at the same time. You have to either like it or not like it. Life just doesn't work that way necessarily. Maybe you like the deals. Well, I'm happy to tell you that Decibullz custom modded earphones, molded not modded. And, oh, by the way, speaking of audio, there's some big news that came across my radar today. I'll cover in today's roundup. The Decibullz custom molded earphones, 25% off at deals.lockergnome.com. The easy guide to computer networks, free. Batman Gotham City 12x12 unframed print, 28% off. And an iOS game coding course for free. Bickety bam. Just like that. You want to learn how to program an iOS game? You can. It doesn't even cost you anything. And now, combined with not having to pay for a developer program, if you don't plan on submitting your app to the App Store, it's all free. Free, all the things. Well, not all the things, because patrons, thank goodness, pledge on a monthly basis to allow me to continue to do the things that I'm doing, and I continue to do even more things for them. So if you like what I do now, you get even more of me, you become a patron. More information at chrispirillo.com. Okay, so let's run down the news. I posted on, I guess, a reboot of a blog. Pirillo.com is going to be kind of think pieces, op-eds, where I kind of give deeper insight that normally I wouldn't cover in a video or people wouldn't be interested in watching on YouTube. Brief essays around talking points, questions that you might have asked me, or things that I really wanted to, explain to the world at large and not use video as a medium necessarily. Ignore the CSS. The web design on the site, I think, needs a lot of improvement, but I am not a CSS master, so it's just going to have to work right now. I posted a reviewer's job and explained to me what makes a good review and what doesn't make a good review. And it basically boils down to, I want more human factors in the review. I want more bias in the review. I want to get to know a reviewer, not for who they work for, but who they are. Because I can better understand the review that they're making when I understand who they are in general. It's like when you watch or listen or read something that I've written about, when you see a review from me, you've likely seen more than just one thing from me. You've seen a lot of things to better understand that I'm certainly this type of person, not that type of person. So I'm not going to do the review like another type of person. I'm going to do it like me. I'm going to throw all my bias into reviews. That's like me saying I'm a human being. Everyone's bias. Everyone has bias. Everyone. I also had posted for the patrons why I believe the iPad is the new PC. I've made the argument. It's a clear-cut argument, and I'm going to continue to pound that drum over the coming months and years, because it's going to happen. And in fact, I explained it really at length in a post, or in the post that is written. You can't necessarily listen to it, but the patrons do get that as an exclusive. So here's a rather interesting. It's not just a supposition, but I think this is certainly a clear-cut case of where there's smoke, there's fire. Posted on Medium by someone who definitely knows, what he is talking about in relation to what he is talking about. Apple's Bitcode telegraphs future CPU plans. Now, I talked about Bitcode ever so briefly last week and why it's important, and why I think it's going to be important. And so I don't want to dive in too deeply with that. But what this I guess outline really suggests is that Apple's making it easier for developers to do what they do without necessarily having to worry about CPUs that don't exist yet. Bitcode will basically compile when the app is being downloaded for the device it's being downloaded for. So it'll optimize it on the back end. So developers can do what they're doing and not have to worry about the complexities of what CPU they're developing for, at least in relation to iOS. They just submit the app. iOS, or I guess Apple, basically compiles it for the CPU, or the CPU that's being used specifically for the device that's downloading that app, and it's compiling it in near real time at the time of download. So why is this important? Well, Apple, as you very well know, has its own set of processors that it modifies, and it's largely been doing that in just about every iOS device, or at least many of the Apple experiences that people have had over the years. More people likely have had the experience with an iPhone over a Mac. Of course, OS X runs on top of Intel's platform, or Intel's processors. iOS, completely different, so it's running an ARM chipset. And it's a modified ARM chipset, but Apple is continuing to make investments and modifications. Over time, it is feasible that we're going to see the performance in iOS on a modified Apple CPU in line with a GPU, an entire Apple computer run by Apple, modified by Apple, created by Apple, manufactured by Apple, stem to stern. And the performance may match the performance of what we've seen in some MacBooks, not every one. But is it going to be enough? I think so. And so if today they're basically announcing the idea of Bitcode, wherein a developer can just develop the software and not have to worry about future CPU updates down the line. Apple will take care of it for them. Apple is building future compatibility for CPUs that may not even exist yet. This is what is being suggested, and you know what? I say it's rather on the nose. Makes sense to me. Does everybody need an Intel processor? Maybe not for everything. Does Apple need an Intel processor? Yes, today. In order to run OS X, you need to be running on an Intel platform. They're still dealing with AMD and NVIDIA in terms of graphics performance, but even that could be supplanted with enough advancement. Do average people need everything that every possible computer or top-end classic desktop or laptop computer has to offer? Not necessarily. The average person is probably better served by a mobile device, running on an Intel platform. We've seen Android tablets running on Intel's platform, or even an iPad, obviously not running on Intel's platform. They don't necessarily need a desktop class system. And now, coding optimizations and system performance, for the most part, could very well match the performance of what we've seen in traditional desktop counterparts. And I think Apple is going to continue to move that direction. They don't know where it's going to be. They don't know when it's going to be. But conceivably, within the next few years, we could see iOS overtake what OS X is. I'm not necessarily thrilled about that idea, if only because I do like what OS X has to offer. I like the desktop paradigm. There are a lot of things that I can get done on the desktop that I can't necessarily get done on an iPad, even with the split screen. I'm just doing a lot of things, and I demand a lot when I'm doing anything with video. I don't know if I can necessarily pump out a live video stream like this at this stage without something like a desktop class system. That could very well change. In fact, we're seeing the beginnings of that. Live streaming directly from the Periscope app, the Meerkat app, or YouTube app, any type of app that can live stream anything from point A to point B. We're no longer needing the desktop systems. My daughter was very interested in what I was saying right there. Well, you need to read the rest of the article, Missy. Don't TLDR me. I will TLDR you. Reading is fundamental. So, the idea, I don't think is outlandish, that today, people don't necessarily need classic desktops or laptops. That's reasonable, and I believe that. And in the future, and as we continue to progress with iterations of technology, I think that's going to become more and more of a reality. I don't think that's outlandish at all. I think it's very, very believable. It's conceivable, and I think Apple can pull it off. Apple would be one of the rare companies to be able to pull it off, because it's not just about the hardware, but the hardware running in conjunction with the software. It's those two working together. That's what makes Apple completely different from every other vendor on the planet. And, more power to them. Apple. Now, speaking of, this is the news that I was going to mention today when I was talking about the audio experience that we've got on deals.lockergnome.com. Apple has revoked Monster's authority to make licensed accessories through its MFI program. And Monster has paid Apple millions of dollars for that right, for the license. And Apple's saying, you know what, we don't like what you did with the Beats thing and the whole lawsuit thing back in January. So, yeah, you know what, whake! You can't sell them anymore. Go ahead and continue your run. But come later this year, you can't put it on any more of your products. And Monster's like, what? What do you mean? We just sued you. Why would you? You're bad. You're bad for. You're an evil company because you're not letting us license your technology, and you're not forgetting that we sued you. Okay, that's not really what each side said. I'm paraphrasing, but for the most part, that's how it's going to play out. Or that's how it is playing out. So Monster does not have the ability to create MFI products. Now, that's really going to, I'm sure, hurt Monster more than it's going to hurt Apple. I don't think Apple's going to be hurting at all. And if you like Monster, well, maybe you're going to be able to weather this particular shortcoming or not. It's completely up to you. You can make the decision. If you don't care about Apple Apple at all, this news is, by and large, irrelevant to your part of the galaxy. But it is still a big deal that, Apple just doesn't forget. It's like, you know what? You sued Beats. We don't like that. I don't blame Apple at all. I don't necessarily blame Monster for suing Beats for what they did. Or at least Monster's perspective and why they went forward with it. But you can't blame Apple for this. You can't say it's being a bully. It's not fair. It's just not fair. I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. Not by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know everything about the situation. All I'm saying is that Apple had the right to exercise its rights to deny Monster the license. They have the ability to do this. Do I care? I don't know. I guess I haven't used Monster's products in years. Then again, the only Beats I've ever used fell apart. So it's not that I think Beats are amazing. I don't. Human Rights Court says sites are liable for user comments. I've pretty much eliminated user comments. I mean, YouTube is a completely different ballgame, I think. But for the most part, every time I look at comments, I always feel bad. Not necessarily for myself, but for humanity. And really, this is the best you could do? Comments, I think, are overrated. And I think they're very, very valuable. Don't get me wrong, I love comments. That's my favorite part about videos, and I think I even mentioned this in an upcoming Pirillo vlog, which I hope you're subscribed to and watching. Today, I posted my spicy noodle challenge, thanks to Tony Yoon. That was very hot and spicy. And one guy, he's a moron, but he said he's got a track record for being a moron, so I'm not just calling him names. He says, well, it was a little over-exaggerated, but you can tell he wasn't faking it because I could see sweat. Yeah, well, I'm glad to have proven to you that, I nearly killed myself over spicy noodles. Anyway, comments tend to be the worst part of humanity. And they tend to be the best part of humanity, too. I put a new comment, a supportive, uplifting comments at the end of pretty much every single Pirillo vlog because I enjoy that. I enjoy elevating the positive. But to know that a court is going to find sites liable for user comments, I think the sites are well within their rights to not have comments. In fact, if you look on Pirillo.com, which is what I've been referring to and where I've been putting some of my recent think pieces, no comments. I don't want comments. I don't want to deal with it. Because inevitably, when you talk about technology, some people treat it as a religion. And I am not interested in your religion. I'm not interested in treating technology for anything more than what it is. It's a series of tools. They're very transformative tools. They're amazing tools, but they're tools. And to give anybody else that pulpit on MySpace, not to be confused with MySpace, my own space, I just didn't need to do it. You want to comment on it? Link it in social and make your own comment. Link it on Facebook. Link it on your own blog. But you're not going to comment on mine. I'm done with the idea of comments because I've just seen horrible things happen in comment threads. I think that there are certainly times for comments, but I think by and large people use it as a bully pulpit. Very rarely do I run into a resource that has an intelligible comments thread or any amount of intelligence that adds to the original article. Rarely. It has happened, and it can happen, don't get me wrong. But I think this is just going to push people further and website owners further into just disabling comments. You can't, it's not like stifling. I don't think it's stifling free speech. You are more than welcome to comment on your own. Hey, you want to comment on one of my blog posts where you can't comment on the page? Go to your own blog. You can set one up for free. Help make a video about it. Tweet about it. Facebook about it. I can't stop you. I make no mistake. I can't stop you from thinking what you think or saying what you say or doing what you do. I do have the right, however, to not allow bad behavior in my space. I keep saying MySpace. MySpace is not back, by the way. MySpace is still, to my knowledge, pretty much a dead platform walking. BitTorrent has debuted Shoot, a $2 photo sharing app with no file size limits for Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and is betting on an ad-free experience that puts privacy first. More information at getsync.com/shoot. All the links for you in the description for this particular broadcast, whether you're listening to the podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes or however you listen to podcasts in your podcatcher, or you're potentially watching this on YouTube. It's nice to see some software like this. I would be curious to know why they're charging $2 for it. I know they don't have a plan on running ads because it's obviously about privacy. This is almost like the anti-Google Photos. Unlimited for Android, iOS, Windows Phone, so I guess there's an advantage over Google Photos, is you can get it on the Windows Phone. It's from BitTorrent, if you trust the company that brought you the protocol. $2, though, and I'm not going to complain, because I think, honestly, complaining about a $2 app is just, it makes you look really I shouldn't have called that guy a moron. He says moronic things. I feel better. I shouldn't name call, but I can judge I can talk about their behavior. He says moronic things. Complaining about a $2 app doesn't make you stupid. It makes you sound stupid. There, Hun, I figured out a loophole. I'm a better human being for it. I keep telling myself. But $2, really, with Google doing it for free, for iOS and Android at least, Windows Phone a very, very, very distant third, it's just interesting, and it may be too late. Google Photos kind of sucked the air out of the room as far as I'm concerned. I explained Google Photos to Diana, and she was surprised. She's like, wait, really? All my photos and videos? Really? They're all, I can get, yep, with Google. It's that easy. It's that simple. It's that straightforward. I like it. Haven't had a chance to try the BitTorrent app, but I really have no plans. It's not really fulfilling a need that I necessarily need. I understand privacy and the value of privacy, no doubt about it. But I'm also pretty happy with what Google's doing for me. I'm willing to make that trade-off with Google, and I understand it is Google. And with Google, by and large, I am the product. Etsy has launched Fund on Etsy, a Kickstarter-like crowdfunding platform, as a 2-month pilot in the U.S. Kind of neat. I like Etsy. I get a lot of things through Etsy, if only because that's where I can find a unique, vintage items, antiques, not vintage, collectibles. Original art. I've picked up a fair amount of original art through Etsy, because you can't really get it anywhere else, and Etsy's a great marketplace for that kind of thing, at least for my perspective. And even if I find a style or how someone might do something, if I ask for a custom, sometimes it's easier to get a hold of someone on the Etsy marketplace. For example, I can look around. I've got a Darth Vader print, not original, but I got that on Etsy. Some Kokeshi doll. A Money, Munny, I think it's from Kid Robot, but a customized Darth Vader. A 3D Darth Vader. This is in my workshop. You've seen it if you've seen either my tour or any of the vlogs. I've got the Darth Vader crayon. I've got, at least one of them. The one he was doing before he was doing the paint jobs on the Darth Vader, or the crayon carvings. Darth Vader pixel art, all through Etsy. So if you've always wanted to develop your own craft, and you weren't sure where to start, and you wanted to crowdfund it, instead of actually having done it and then sold it, you can basically find out if the crowd wants to support you for the endeavor of what you want to build. So it's kind of a nice addition. I like Etsy. Some people don't like Etsy. Etsy, as far as I'm concerned, has been a great experience for me, or at least an okay experience for me to this point. Not perfect, but nothing is. Google Play app downloads now 2 times that of iOS, not including the default app updates. By the way, those are not included in this number, which means it's that much more impressive. But Android users spend half as much as iOS users, up from 1/4 a year ago. Play revenues may overtake the App Store this year. Big deal, because there are more people using Android than iOS, and Apple kind of says, we're making more money, even though there are more downloads over there. And of course, Google's going, hey, we got more people that you're using more devices, therefore developers should develop for our platform, blah, 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 blah. It's good to have competition. There's never a winner in a race that never ends. I feel like I say these maxims just about every day about every particular article. The bottom line is developers can make money on a variety of platforms. I think that on an increasing basis, that's going to become more and more difficult. There are more apps out there available, and every day a new app becomes available, if not more. With more and more, you can't possibly have all the apps. Only one of them is going you're going to use one of them. I mean, I mentioned this to Kim Johns, Kimberly, I think she prefers to be called. Sorry, my phone's charging right now. She was asking about, basically scanning a series of documents. I'm like, well, I guess she didn't have a scanner. I'm like, use your phone. Like, there are like a billion scanner apps. I happen to use one, and I'd used several over time, but ultimately found myself always using that one because I found it to be best in class. So that's what happens. Software evolves. Some software dies. And then new software comes along and is better than the old software. And then it becomes very, very competitive. And it can be a challenge for a developer. There are a lot of developers making money, but with more and more developers making money altogether, that means each developer is making less and less money. It's the same problem we've had with content creators. How many times do I have to tell you, with as many people out there creating content, amazing content that you can pay attention to, That means there's a lot of things for you to pay attention to. So what are you paying attention to? Where do you value? This is why, without the Patreon campaign, I wouldn't be doing this. I'll be honest with you. Grateful to have the sponsors when we have them, but I don't always have a sponsor. So having patrons, having people who are willing to pledge a certain amount a month to get the stuff that they get is amazing for content creators. And trust me, I'm all for finding way many or way more. I'm for finding substantially more patrons and supporters in that sense than I am trying to chase large subscriber numbers, because there's too much to pay attention to these days. Same thing with apps. App developers are going to run into the exact same problem, and in fact, it may even be more difficult for developers than it would be, and potentially more expensive for developers than it would be for content creators. So we're kind of in the same boat. App developers, they may have an outstanding app, but they may not make a lot, because there's a lot to pay attention to, a lot to download, a lot to buy into, and there's only so much revenue to go around. So Apple may be making a lot more in aggregate, YouTube may be making a lot more in aggregate, but each individual, not as much. You have outliers, but then you also have the long tail of the people who, may be doing their best work that they've ever done in their entire life and pouring their heart and soul into something. But unfortunately, the value of content, much like the value of an app, isn't necessarily always contingent on the value of what it is itself. Rather, the value of how much you're able to sell or how many people are able to see it. And so, what do you do? Well, you focus on making something great. Even if you focus on making something great and doing exactly what people want you to do, there's no guarantee of being a success. It's the Darth Vader toaster problem. All over again. It's just funny to me. It's funny, but not funny. How I've talked about this over and over and over again. People want to know certain things from me that I've already explained again and again and again. But they missed it the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. And I can't spend all my time regurgitating things that I've said over and over and over again. App developers put an app out there once. But, if users don't find it, what's its value? What if it's better than what's the user's using now? Is there too much momentum behind that app being used on the user's phone? Oh, well, I've already spent $3 on this app. I don't want to get that one. I'm good. This is fine. Even though that app is probably going to work better for me, I'm good with this app. So there are a lot of factors at play. And developers, I will say, yes, absolutely push forward. Do your best work with every revision. Do amazing stuff. I'd say the same thing to content creators. But understand that, being perceived as a success or being able to generate enough revenue to offset your costs or offset the intelligence that you might be sharing, it's going to become increasingly more difficult over time. So this plays very well into you, even if you're not an app developer or a content creator. Because if an app developer isn't able to make his or her nut, if they aren't able to generate enough revenue, what can they do? They can't develop that app anymore. What if they've developed the most amazing app? Okay, let me ask you this. On your phone or tablet or desktop or whatever, do you have a game or an app that you love but hasn't been updated forever? And you want an update? You need an update? Why hasn't it been updated forever? Could it be related to the developer not having enough money? I don't know. Maybe they're not selling enough. Maybe they have different plans. Maybe there's not enough competition. I really genuinely don't know. I've got a desktop blog publishing software that I'm really not happy with, and I spent like $40 on it, $20. I can't remember. It was a lot of money, certainly, and I don't necessarily think that it's where it needs to be, not just in design but also in execution. But in terms of ease of use, it works, and I'm happy enough with it as it stands. So I haven't looked to another alternative at this stage. I think there are a lot of factors at play, but developers have to double down on where their audience is. It's not just about being cross-platform. It's about going to where your audience is, and your audiences are going to be the people who support you. In every way, shape, or form. The audience or the community or your customers are the ones who are making sure that you're able to do what it is that you do. That's the bottom line. So I'm very grateful to everybody out there, but especially my patrons, aka the Supernomies. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you again for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, watching even more of our videos right now, for interacting with us every day in every one of our YouTube channels and channels across social. And of course, supporting us in whatever way that you see fit. We're going to roll into the Patreon Hangout now. You're more than welcome to join us. Head over to chrispirillo.com for more information. Be sure to check out the new blog at pirillo.com for deeper tech insight. From my perspective, I'm not perfect. I'm Chris Pirillo. That's a horrible tagline. At this point, however, I'm going to leave you to your own devices.